just you get to choose. Right? Like here's the scenario. The environment gives us something which can be perceived as negative, can be perceived as not working, can be perceived as problematic. The world's ending. But we get to choose to see it like that, or we get to choose to see it as an opportunity.
So clearly that it's my responsibility now to do that for other people. If I have information and, other people's success is my success and vice versa.
Because you know what? Like, the challenges or the roadblocks are the journey themselves.
There's no big things. It's all little things compounding on top of each other.
Happy New Year! What's going on, Coach? This is the first Truth Seekers of 2023. Whenever this might be going out, be later than that, of course. But let's talk leadership, Coach. You mentioned that before we started here. Let's dive right in, as always. Start the value. What about leadership?
I'm fascinated by this concept of graduating from the space of, making sure everybody is in good standing with me or happy with me, or I'm not ruffling any feathers, to truly doing what's best for the most number of people or for the organization. And not that it's not caring about what people think, but knowing that you're going to ruffle some feathers with some of the decisions that you make along the way. Right? This is a common thing for a lot of business owners as they grow and expand their businesses and manage more people. But also for myself, this is something that I'm going through myself, and not only business, but some other personal interactions as well. So we'd love to get to another greater level of understanding as we do with our time together.
Yeah, it takes me back to my banking days, actually. I remember I had a boss once would tell me that, and he was a director, and his all reports were all VPs, and he said, I really want to get you some more gravitas. He said, you've got a reputation for being like, oh yeah, he's a good kid. He knows what he's doing, like he's good. And that really just struck me as you said that, right? And it's whether I'm in good standing with everyone. Everyone feels good about my ability, but I'm not necessarily leading, right? It's like you're part of the team, but you're not leading it. And I think that really struck me when you said that. Does that resonate?
It does. I had a single quote that came up while you're saying that, with "heavy is the head that wears the crown."
Mm-hmm. So
as you make these decisions, like, it brings on new stresses, and I'm speaking directly from experience here. But you'll start to, these decisions or these very impactful divergences will fall on your shoulders and it's up to you. It's your call to do something, or to take the organization in a certain direction, or to discipline somebody who's acting out and it's causing, negative ripple effects throughout the company. So it's moving from, somebody that everybody gets along with, to making tougher decisions, knowing that not everybody's going to be happy with that.
Yeah. I found it actually very challenging because I wasn't in a place where I really did care about the outcomes or about where that company was going, or didn't feel like I could be. It wasn't enough. That was really the change for me, where you could play a game up to that point, like, oh yeah, this is pretty easy. I just fine. I can do this stuff and get pretty far, but without having that actual juice and passion as to why you're there, you can't. That's the challenge for me. And then once you do that, you're in a place where you do want to be there and you do have a vision for what that is. Actually, for me, it becomes easier. So heavy is the head, wears the crown. I think of it like doing a squat with an empty bar. That's sometimes harder to get stability with an empty bar. If you put a couple of plates on it, it's like, that thing's pretty solid. I know all I do is push up and down. I actually find it when it's heavier, it's actually easier in a way, because then you haven't got to fight to find what the right thing is to do. You already know what it is because you're aligned with it.
Now, this is resonating with me because there's certainly a space with, I don't know if this is combined with the fact that there seems like there's more to deal with. There's less time to, like, finagle with all the details and the intricacies. Like, this is where intuition comes in, which is, this is what we're doing. This is how we're, like, I've consulted the people that I've consulted. I've gathered the details that I need to understand. And this is how we're squatting this bar right now.
Yeah. And then, so what I'm thinking and writing down is about trust. Like intuition is a good way of thinking about it, for like knowing what it is, because it's optimizing for action and speed, because you know that there's a lot of stuff out there. And trust in yourself to know that that is right is the intuition part, and then trust in others, because if you don't, then you can't go any further, and and certainly can't go any further if you don't trust yourself. Like anytime we work together, like I trust you completely to like, hey coach, what do you want to do? Bam, I want to do. Okay, good, do that. Like because we have that level of trust, and without that, then we're never going to get anywhere anyway. But
Mm,
but to get trust, you've got to give trust, and so like that's how I'm always going to lean. So that makes it easier, I think, as well, because you just got to remove all the stuff that someone else could do or would do. It's
sure.
not the most important thing; it's just a distraction. I just had a conversation about that just now with another coach.
Yeah. Hmm. I actually have another unrelated but somewhat related example. So, come up several times that I play hockey. So I captain one of my teams, and certain responsibilities have fallen on my shoulders with personnel decisions that I was not intending to have happen. All right, so it's just like out of necessity, I've jumped into this role, and it's good to hear what you just mentioned about trust, because that was my natural instinct with, you know, yes, I'll have this decision to make, or these decisions to make. But what my gut reaction was to consult other people and bring them in on things I was thinking about, like developing that trust. So I think that's true of any organization or business or any leadership position, is that you can't lead properly without knowing how your people interact, or even interacting with yourself, right? You have to tap into that place of that connectivity, that relator doer thinker. Shout out mind scan. But it
Boom.
is going to a deeper level. So when whether you're appointed that leadership or you've fallen into it, or etc., I think that next step is just checking in with your relationships around you, and if there's a way to go deeper there, that seems to be an effective way to start out thinking about a leadership role.
Yeah, you can't build something on sand, on soft sand. You know, you're wherever you're going to, you've got to step off from. Shout out back to the mind scan. It's either going to be people, systems, or processes, right? And that's it.
Mm,
You can't take the next level action if you haven't got something to support the thing that you were doing already. So it's either someone else does it for you, or you got a system that automates it from a technology or a group of people, or you stop doing it.
mm,
Likely, it's something you don't want to stop doing. Otherwise, you wouldn't be going to that next level of what it is. But part of that is the relator of saying goodbye to that version of you again, with that mindset part, to go to that next level up. But yeah, and like most of the time, but you've got to give it first, right? Because if you're going, oh, I don't know if I trust that person, I'm ready or not. If they're ready or not, have they proved themselves?
mm.
Then you can't move on. So again, I'm always gonna my bias towards action. Like it seems to be the right thing. I get that. I get that. I see that validated all the time. It's my standard bias anyway. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not. Maybe I created that before I started doing mind scan, um, to lean into action, because that's when I'm going to get the results from. Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I want to ask more about. So I love the squatting analogy, right? So you didn't just go from the bar to putting, four plates on there. So there was some version of a gradual incline, and I'm making this analogy for the leadership, right? So
hmm.
it seems like you were at, an advanced version of your leadership understanding or duties, or whatever, however you perceive that for yourself. What was that like in the beginning? If you could remember, any one of those examples of like adding a little bit of weight, like instead of four plates from the beginning, what was that? What was the repetition like in the beginning, if you can remember?
The repetition and stuff. So I think about my first official team when I was 22, 23. I had four people in my team, and they were all in their mid 30s, and it was a trade booking type team doing middle office activities in a bank. But and so it was more like, okay, now they do the tasks. So I was doing the tasks before. Now they do the tasks. Now I'm responsible for four people's tasks. This is the platform or program that needs to get done. So okay, I'm just going to make sure that they do that, right? And then I found myself just making sure that they did it. And then whilst they're doing it, I was just sitting there doing nothing. And then they started to notice I was sitting there doing nothing. But in fact, obviously, I was seeing what was going on, and doing nothing in that place is kind of the point, but it can seem like it shouldn't be. The point of having other people do some of the activities is so you can be free to do other activities. But practically, in a setting like that, it's you're doing an activity and three other people are doing an activity, and you're just saying, now I'm responsible for all four activities. Not you've got these three people now do activities where that other person doesn't. That's the goal to get to, because as that person turns more into more a leader, then they can start to do other things. The first part is, can you run the process or report on the process through these people? So the distinction I'm making, this is what I'm going to be talking to a lot of audiences about this year, is that distinction between being a manager and a leader. That's the first part of it. That's the first weight on the bar. You tend to get given leadership responsibilities if you're a good manager of a process or a technical or execution on technical things. Hey, you've been doing that really well. Now I want you to run a team. And so the first part is, I'm just going to continue what I'm doing and report on the activities they're doing. I'm not actually doing any leadership activities. And then it starts to be more interaction with people. Oh, this I want to get a raise, or I don't like this doing this task anymore. Can I do something else? Or I'm going to be out sick, or I'm going to be out on vacation. Can I have this person coming in? Then you start getting into the people side of it. And now you're thinking, well, this is what's been working up until this point, this management of this task and process. I'm just going to apply that same concept to the people of it. And it might work a little bit, but people aren't tasks and processes. They're people, and you can only lead people. That's the leap that most people don't get supported into. And that's why oftentimes you can get either stuck in what you're doing, or you can explode things because they don't have any leadership training, and they just started to think about it from a process point of view. And
Mm.
then you push harder and it creates conflict. Let me stop there, but that's the
Yeah,
first.
yeah. I love the concept of manager versus leader. So what's the biggest difference? Like how could you point out the difference between two people? One's a manager, one's a leader. What's a noticeable thing that you can pick out?
Yeah. So leaders primarily are going to. I mean, if you think, it's easy to think about it from a owner of a company, or a CEO of a company, let's say, from a corporate perspective. Maybe more challenging from a first level leadership, but it's essentially the same thing. It's creating the vision. This is where we're going. Do you want to come on this journey? I'm not going to tell you how to walk on the journey. I'm just going to say, this is the journey. This is the outcome. Does that sound good to you? Are you in for this outcome? This is where we're going. Do you like that? Does that sound good? Cool, let's go. And then you start walking as a leader, and then whoever has taken on the things that you've set out, they will follow behind you or beside you. That's essentially what leadership is. And so, what would it be? What would it actually look like in a like a first level leader? Would be coming from the front. Hey team, this is what I've been doing in my tasks. This is how I manage my process. This is what I do, and this is the type of feedback I get, and these are the results I've got. What do you think about that? Is that something you could do as well? How do you do it in your process? And you're essentially helping them along as to what they're doing. And then you
Mm.
can say, well, look, what do you think we think about this as a team? And as a collective team, what could we create and produce here if we followed these best practices? So you're creating that shared direction and destination. You're not telling,
Mm.
you're asking.
Ooh, tell me more about that.
Well, so there's direct overlap for coaching, because there's coaching is exactly that. It's asking, not telling. You can tell a process to do something and manage a process. You can't tell a person to do something, at least not in the long term. Now, this is where immediate new leaders that are really managers in this place often fall down. It's because now there's a hierarchy, or an expected hierarchy. They start telling people what to do. I'm
Mm.
your boss. You need to do this. And it might work for a little while because people will don't want to lose their jobs typically, but they will be there until they can not be there. They'll remove themselves from that situation as soon as they can because people don't want to be told what to do.
Mm.
It's a throwback to the industrial, what do you call it, era. Like
Yeah.
it's not
Clock
the way
in,
people
clock
really
out,
want to.
working
Yeah.
for the man. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's like the old model,
Yeah.
out with the old, in with the new here.
Yes. Command and control, not trust and inspire, to quote Stephen Covey's new book. But that's it, and it's in a starting form for sure.
All right. So create a compelling vision. And I like what you said about like just sharing what, part of the process that has made that person successful, because that's the bridging of the gap from like being a high producer, right? Like high producers are usually the ones that are uh, most likely to be offered those leadership roles, right? But it takes a certain type of person to be able to make that transition. So what you're saying is, if somebody's successful, then more than likely it can be repeated. It can be like the principles of what makes that person successful can be adopted by other people. So something, their skill level, their work ethic, something has made that person be successful, so much so that they're being trusted to share some of those secrets, some of those things that they see so clearly that other people might not see. And just sharing those things combined with that compelling vision of the future is going to allow other people to produce or increase their level of production.
Yeah. In my experience, is what is that? Oh, you seem to be doing a good job here. Why don't you go and do that over there with them?
Yeah.
Basically, what it was. Right, oh, you seem to be working okay here. Can you go and help them do that as well?
Mm,
And then kind of sort of bouncing your way through it, tripping your way through it, and starting
right.
to figure that out. Yeah, I mean, I'd say that's essentially it. The principles are the same, right? Just the further you go in any role, any industry, the more you go up that vertical of that skill set, the more your skill set is so-called soft skills, which, as far as I'm concerned, we should be calling that something different, and probably there's some better language around that. But it becomes essentially leadership skill at the same thing. That's why people that are senior in organizations, if we think about that perspective, can jump from one organization to the other without having the technical skill.
Mm,
And oftentimes, that technical skill becomes a burden because you see things in a certain frame, certain paradigm for that industry. At a
mm,
lower level, the worst version of that is being in, let's say you're in a team of six and the supervisor leaves and you're the person with the most experience in that team, and now you're the default supervisor, and you're there a month, and like you got it, you got the job, you're the supervisor. Now you go from being a peer to being the boss. All of a sudden, you've got a double whammy of problems because now you've got to do the leadership. I mean, probably you will be management because they didn't know what it is, and you've got to do your tasks, or you've got to delegate those, and you've got to deal with the expectations of everyone else that like you were just one of the guys, and now you're the boss. So great, you know what it needs to get done from a process point of view, so that you've got that's a bonus. Or excuse me, that's one thing in your feather in your hat. But then after a while, that becomes something that pulls you back because when the real difficult stuff needs to get done, you're asked to call on it to do that, rather than having someone in the team who's the expert. As
mm,
the leader, you can't be the expert in the team as well.
mm,
At least not to the level where you're the person that gets called on as a default. It's a different role. You need that role, but it's not the same thing.
mm. Yeah. So is it safe to say that part of that leadership, like graduating to that level of leadership, is also identifying who your key players are that will be those experts?
Yeah, because someone's got to do it, right? Someone's got to do the. So if you're thinking about any given industry, there's a specific day to day, week on week processes and deliverables that you need to create, and in order to create revenue and be profitable, those things have to carry on. Now, if in a business point of view, you want to remove yourself from some of that stuff, so you can do higher value add, different revenue streams or something else, just to create the bigger version of the business. Then if you stop doing those other activities, it doesn't work because then you're impacting revenue. So you need someone else to do that for you. So yeah, in order for you to go to that next level, you've got to create someone to do that. And that's why I was always talking about leverage, and that's why that book, who, not how, is so powerful as well because it allows you to think in those terms immediately. It's always a who, not a how. How do I do that? Means like just in the question itself is like, I got to go do it versus who is going to do that.
Mm.
Who's my who here? Allows you to think in those terms immediately.
Perhaps we can get our producer Rob to throw up the image of that book. So, Who Not How, that's written by Dan Sullivan, and there's another author there, I believe, right?
Benjamin Hardy, Dr. Benjamin
Okay,
Hardy.
got it. Yes, that's such a key principle. Who, not how. I actually haven't read that book. I've just lived vicariously through you. What was the biggest takeaway? I mean, obviously it's in the title there, but maybe a principle, maybe a principle that spoke to you.
Well, it spoke to me because it's what we do anyway. It's leverage, not effort.
Mm,
It's creating, it's the team around you. So back to Mindscan again. It's what, so systems, you can actually, systems is having a process, having something to follow down day and a strategy, but it could also be who's going to create those things for you. So any given thing that you're doing, presume that you shouldn't be doing it. If it's not giving
mm,
you a bunch of due, so someone this morning, client said this morning, I do a lot of admin for. He's a sales VP, and like, so it's most important right now is to finish up the planning for the year. Do the goal setting, set out a Lagley lift. He said I need to do like a bunch of vendor updates. I've got a bunch of templates that need updating for the new year and just dates and things like that. And so he said something to me, which is I've said before a bunch of times. I've heard lots of people saying before, it's, oh, like it's not. I don't want to do it. It's not too big a deal. It should only take like about an hour each. Not a big deal. So as a leader, what he's saying is, I'll do this shit even though I don't want to because I know it needs to get done and I'll step up. And that's right. It needs to get done. Someone's got to get it done. I'm going to get it done. That's way better than screw this. I'm not doing it. I'm going home.
hmm
But we're not talking about that. We're talking about high level leaderships here. We're talking about like performance mindset of successful people. We're not talking about lazy versus do the work. Like that's far gone. But I would suggest that mindset that he displayed of I'll do it, someone's got to get it done, I might as well do it, I will step up, actually is preventing him from actually doing the things he should be doing. And
mm
it's not about the hour it takes him to do it, it's about the energy suck that it pulls out of him from doing that. So it
mm.
takes an hour. All right, no big deal. Bam, he does that, goes to lunch, comes back and goes, now he hasn't got the energy or is excited to do the things he actually wanted to do that he needed to do in the first place. The one that's actually important. It's not the hour; it's the energy. It should
Yeah, and
be
that's where we get into the
managing
territory of
energy.
that's exponential, right? Exponential negativity, and then that's going to be my takeaway today. Like being a producer versus being a leader. A producer is about what one person produces. A leader is about what a collective produces, and that's the exponential version. If you can share the principles of what has made you as a producer be successful to multiple producers, all of a sudden that's that compelling vision coming to fruition there. We're accomplishing things greater than ourselves, and we're using the principles of whatever that producer embodied by themselves, and the entire team's adopting those principles to achieve something greater than they could have achieved on their own.
And I think that's so important to share when we're working with our clients as well. When we're looking at year on year, what if we're just looking at purely the numbers? I don't want to make a 20% jump, 10% jump because it's iteration. We can make things tighter. If we're looking at 100% increase in revenue, then we're forced to look at the who's, because if one producer can create 100,000 widgets average, the good producers might be able to, the really good ones might be able to do 150, the average ones might be doing 75, and so we've got an average overall. So we can maximize that so everyone's up to 150, but we're not really changing the game, right? And so we could say that, all right, I'm 150 producer, but suddenly now I'm going to go look at having 10 different producers. Then the game changes completely because now my maximum upside is not 150, it's 1.5 million. It's completely different. And then I can do that first. Then I can look at a system to help create 500,000 widgets by itself at half the cost of a producer. And now I've got a completely different game again.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. That's great.
Boom.
Boom. All right. So is that the takeaway, coach, or you got something that you can bring us home with here?
I actually really like what you said, producers versus leader. That's the exponential. I'm going to write that down. I think that's really important. And I would definitely insist everyone that's listening, watching this, to think about in their business or even indeed their life, where's the leverage they want to create for this year, and to think in that exponential fashion, not the linear, which is our default. You have to really push yourself to think exponential and not linear.
Mm-hmm.
What's the absolute thing that would really blow everything out of the water this year, whatever part of your life you're looking at, and go, if it was 1 million last year, how can we get to 2 million this year? Or better still, 10 million. What would be different? Because even if that's not what you want right now, it's a good thought exercise, because at a certain point you'll hit a wall when it will feel like you can't get through it because you've never thought like that before.
Mm,
So at the very least, you get to practice that muscle.
love that. Exponential, not linear. That's a good principle I'm going to take away too. Coach, thank you for this conversation on leadership. Give me a lot to think about. I want to keep talking about this. We might do another one here. Awesome stuff.
Oh yeah, good subject. Take care, coach. Appreciate you.
All right, take care.
Thank you for watching another episode of Truth Seekers. We appreciate your interaction. So please comment, like, subscribe to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want more, check out some of our links. Links to our masterclass, The Achiever's Mindset, and come join our LinkedIn group. And what do you want to see more of? Remember, we're here to share the simple secrets of successful. So help us do that. What do you want to see? What do you want to see more of? Thanks, and see you again next time.